Ladies and gentlemen, welcome you all to India HR Live. We are so excited over here at India HR Live to be kicking off our first show of the year 2015. And as usual, we are so honored to have the presence of Dr. V Rao, the father of Indian HRD, if I can say like that. Um, Dr. Rao, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nisha. I think it's so nice to be with you all once again to get connected and also learn from across the world. I think you're doing a great job. India HR Live is really live. Thank
Oh,
you very much.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. And on behalf of our entire team and our entire audience, thank you again. We are so honored to have your presence and to have your support to be kicking off our first show. And we are so excited for that. And other than that, we are so happy that you brought a guest as well. So, Dr. TV Ravasur has brought in one of his friend and I guess colleague. So let's meet him and let's utilize that opportunity to meet with a wonderful person, Mr. Kantaswamy. Mr. Kantaswamy, welcome to India HR Live.
Oh, thank you, Nisha. I'm very happy to know India HR through my good friend, Prof. V Rao, and very happy to meet your organization and your colleagues.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I know this is not an official invite. This is not an official show for you. This is all of a sudden Dr. Ravasur has welcomed you to be a part of his show. So we are so honored for that too. So we would like to, let's not waste time and we would like to be kicking off our topic for the next 30 minutes. That is CEOs and CHROs leadership style and role for leadership development. So we all know that there should be a good partnership between CEOs and CHROs in order to build a sustainable organization and even organization culture too. But there is something more than that, and let's hear that from none other than Dr. T.B. Rosa. So, why don't you kick off the show? What would you like to share? Because you have done some fantastic studies with amazing professionals like Professor David McClelland and Abigail Stewart, and you have developed a leadership style measurement tool. So we are pretty much, eager to hear your studies that you would like to share among our audience. So why don't you kick off by telling our audience what's the difference between the role, the leadership roles and style of CEOs and CHROs?
Yeah, Nisha, I just want to get a little to the background of this whole thing. When
Sure.
I joined the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, there was no HR. I joined as a professor of organizational behavior.
Uh-huh.
And I used to teach personal, interpersonal dynamics, team building, and organization development. And we stumbled on this concept actually, both Uday and I thought, and we defined, we saw the need for corporations to take good care of people as long ago as in mid-70s when we worked with Larsen and Toubro, and you all know the story. Uh, and we defined eventually human resource development as competency building, commitment building, and culture building, by which we meant that every individual should be helped to recognize his or her potential and utilize it for the corporation's goals and for the self-development. Also, we meant that people should be happy to work for the organization. Nowadays, I think there is a lot said about happiness index, but in those days we talked of the responsibility of the corporations to make people happy and get committed and enjoy the jobs. And we said for doing all this, corporations should think also of the culture, long-term kind of culture. Now, over a period of time, the HR department was actually constituted to make all this happen in mid-70s. And if we look at last 35 to 40 years of our experience, HR has come a long way. It has done very, very interesting things. but still falls short of what we originally envisaged. Now, when we look at where is it that HR has not done its job, now the answer comes to me that HR has not done enough in terms of influencing the CEOs, influencing the CEOs to make all the three things happen adequately. That is competence building, commitment building, culture building. CEOs are excessively concerned about business goals. And in their concern for business goals, they quite often forget that business can't be achieved without people. And they unknowingly delegate the people part of it to HR, but push them to do HR administration rather than competence building and commitment building. And sometimes the HR people complain that the problem in corporations lies with the CEO. CEO style is coercive, not sometimes very participative, because the CEO is busy all the time. The CEO is not able to devote enough time for HR, and for CEO, HR means logistics management, transportation management, facilities management, and I think managing practically what in the olden days we called as personal administration. Now, my entire focus now is to help the CEOs to get out of that and say that you need to look at your styles. Your styles have a long way to go in competence building, commitment building, and culture building. And who can help the CEO do this? And they can't be a better person than the CHRO to do this. Now, that is the whole theme. That is where I bring in the whole question of styles. Now, you mentioned about my work with McClelland. I used to carry, in the mid-70s, we were using achievement motivation. In fact, I started in IIM a program called Laboratory and Entrepreneurial Motivation based on McClelland's models, which was nothing but teaching people to achieve higher level things by self-set standards, competing with somebody else, by having long-term involvement, what is called nowadays as entrepreneurial motivation. But McClelland himself, in mid-70s, wrote a very interesting article in which was published in Harvard Business Review, Power is the Great Motivator, where he observed that achievement-driven people can't be institution builders. They can be good entrepreneurs, but they can't help the rest of the society. So that's enough influence motivation. I worked with McClelland, and now I lost in touch with her, but she, I'm told, works at the psychology department of the University of Michigan. She came up with a very interesting scale called psychosocial maturity, which Daniel Goleman also used. In fact, Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence is largely derived out of this particular concept. Now, in our work, we discovered three types of leaders in Asian cultures, which is also true across the world. It fits in well with the psychoanalytic theory. The three types of leaders are benevolent leader or charismatic leaders who talk a lot, who are very warm, who are affectionate, who take care of all the needs of employees. These are the old gods. I mean, if you look at a country like India, the Birlas, if you look at, or TVS Iyengar and Sons, I think, who are behind many companies, or Murugappa Group, or Tatas, all of them followed this style in the earlier part of the 19th century. They knew every employee by name, they took care of their needs, and they are there to rescue them if they have made a mistake. So they were father figures. So this style got a lot of loyalty, and it also got, on the negative side, dependence. Then came a critical style. I think some of the managers, this is the second generation managers, when they didn't find the same cooperation coming from employees, they started using theory X style, which is criticize, reprimand, discipline, and so on. We discovered that this style yields results under certain circumstances. Like when there is indiscipline, when people don't work, and it happened in our country. For example, I think sometime in mid-70s when things were not going on Mrs. Gandhi in our country thought that this style will help her re-establish discipline and so on. It may have worked for some time, but I think it didn't work in the long run when people realized that this is not going to be good for people and so on. So similarly, there are companies where theory X of critical style helped, but only for a short-term results. And even today, there are managers who use this. And the last style, and then I'll finish in a minute so that you can talk. I don't certainly like to continue this monologue. The last style is what I now call as HRD style. That is, for some time we called it as self-dispensing style. This style, McClelland came up on his own, and it parallels to the psychoanalytic theory, the highest level of psychosocial maturity. You know, in psychoanalysis, they talk of the 4 stages through which the child goes through. The 4th stage is the highly mature stage, which is a differentiated kind of an ego. Now, in this stage, the style is empowering style. The leader believes the best way to build a company is by making himself or herself dispensable. Dispensable means work to a goal where you are not required. Now, I learned this in IIM Ahmedabad itself. When Sarabhai started, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai started IIM, he had a self-dispensing style where he was only available when the people needed it. And Ravi Mathai followed it. In fact, Ravi Mathai used to say that his job is to make everyone powerful, empowering leader. Now that I found is what we call as the HRD style, a developmental style, which means that the chief executive should believe that his job is to empower all people and not compete with employees. Participate with them. When they make mistakes, help them to learn from mistakes. When they fail, help them to learn from failures. Communicate with all, and do all that we talked of in HRD. That is the developmental style. So many CEOs don't recognize the style that they have. They think that they are developmental, but in reality, some of them are critical and some others are paternalistic, or you may call them maternalistic, whatever style you want to, charismatic, benevolent kind of a leader. Benevolent is more of a neutral term, and to call it paternalistic. So our CHRO job is to help the CEO recognize his or her style and the impact it is making on the organization, and enable the CEO to create the right culture. That's why I said that this is the kind of a thing.
Right.
You want to say something before you leave?
Yeah, I wanted to get your take as well, Mr. Kandaswamy Bharadhan. Why don't you talk a little bit about you so that our audience can know a little bit more about you, and then share your perspectives on, how should CHROs influence the CEOs to gain a style flexibility?
All right. Thank you very much for inviting me to share some thoughts and some views. And thanks, TV, to interact on India HR Time. So basically, I'll be very brief, and I do a few words about myself. And basically from the Indian entertainment industry. And this is an industry HR department. Most of the movie companies for a very long time did not have a structured HR department. But having said that, there is a very strong undercurrent of HR philosophy that runs through most of the media people who work on film and television. Because I basically come from a South Indian production company called Kavitalaya Productions, which was started by the very well-known director, Mr. K. Balachandran, in 1981. And we believed in the philosophy that people have to be motivated to work. And a lot of motivation in the film industry comes from within. We have the internal drivers. And these are the drivers of passion for what one is setting out to do. Because most of the time, the director is like the CEO of the movie project. If I can give an example, the manufacturing or a service setup, the film director is like the CEO. And at the same time, he also has to be the chief
Well, at this point, we are not able to hear you. I guess there is some kind of technical glitches.
CEO of the movie project. It's also.
Well, I'm not at all happy with the technology that we have today at India HR Live. And as you all know, it's just Google Plus. And if you don't have a reliable internet connection, this is what we have at this time. And we had been this same issue in our previous shows as well. But then luckily we had at the beginning of our show and Dr. V Rao, and that was Mr. Kanthaswamy Bharathan, who shared his perspectives on CEOs and CHROs leadership styles, and of course Dr. V Rao, so he shared some presentations too with me, and I look forward to sharing that on our website. Hi sir, are you back? Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you well. Yeah.
All right,
Yes,
thank you.
I'm
yeah.
Good. Myself, show and thank you once again.
Well, I'm not really sure. I didn't hear you, so I'm not really sure what you said at this point. But look forward to having you again on India HR Live sometime soon. Now that we are connected, and we look forward to having you again. So, talking about the presentation that I have, which has an immense knowledge that you guys can get from Dr. V Rao, and I look forward to sharing that on our platform sometime soon, possibly by today itself. Given that we don't have a reliable internet connection at this point, I'm having trouble with the connectivity that I have with Dr. V Rao. It's just on and off. So bear with me at this point. I know this is the first show, and that you all have been waiting for this moment. You guys are waiting there to listen to Dr. V Rao and get his wisdom and make it practical at your organization. So we will schedule a show with him sometime soon, possibly with hello. Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay. Yeah. I can hear you too.
All right. Now you're back.
Yeah, I'm here. I think maybe there is some problem with this. The BSNL fluctuates the internet,
correct.
or maybe Google also one. Google also says that they also sometimes fluctuate and so on.
All right. Well, going back to one of your points that I really wanted to cover is like you told about the difference between, in your days, responsibility has been considered as a factor that you will know whether employees are engaged or not. But now employees value happiness more than their responsibility. So is this a notion that the motivators are getting changed throughout the generation and throughout years after years? And you said in the beginning, theory X has been used by many leaders out there when it comes to difficult situations. So I would guess as CHROs or even HR professional who are in closely working with the human or with the people, they would have a fair understanding of how these motivators are getting changed throughout the generation and throughout the years. So how should the CHROs, help the CEOs understand the generational differences and then the generational motivators among employees?
Well, CHROs themselves and their styles are sometimes an issue. Most CHROs, well, at least a few of them do not realize or may not be realizing with success they may become very, I'm to hate to use the term, but they could become arrogant, or they could become highly autocratic. So it is very important for every CHRO to periodically understand his or her own styles and the impact their style is making in their own departments. CHROs themselves need to be highly empowering. Now it's a big challenge because the role of CHRO requires the CHRO to be a lot more controlling. You know, normally when you had a HR function has three sub-functions. One dealing with IR, which is highly discipline oriented, industrial relations or legalistic. Second, dealing with personal management, which is fairly stable and numbers and logistics oriented. And the third is development. So for a CHRO to recognize that he may be paying more attention to one of these, and over a period of time may have acquired a style which suits him to be more an industrial relations manager than a human resource development manager, or a personnel manager rather than a human resource development manager, and to be able to play all the three roles. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but you have to balance this. You have to balance this. So the first recommendation I have is for HR people to recognize their styles and their own impact. If they don't understand their styles, that means we come back to what Peter Drucker said, self-management as a very important starting point. They won't be able to help themselves. The reason why I'm saying this is, many companies, I have worked almost with about 400 to 500 organizations in India in the last 20-25 years using 360-degree feedback, and I've rarely seen HR manager undergo 360-degree feedback. So the HR manager facilitates others, but does not realize that because sometimes when I talk to HR managers, they say, no, I get feedback every day, I don't need any of these, which is very surprising. So my first condition is, I think CHROs should become more insightful about things and the impact that they are making on the team that they have. Some of the CHROs have hundreds and hundreds of HR managers. Many of them are good. I don't want to say that, but they need to recognize this. And so this is number one. Okay.
So,
you want to ask me anything there?
Yeah, I wanted to stop you right there and ask you one more question, because CHROs, when they're highly empowering and then they know what people cares and then they know their business, do you think that CHROs make great CEOs?
Those CHROs who have been successful, who have done a great job, who are empathetic, who are humble, and at the same time who are learning oriented, they make great CEOs. In fact, one of the recent articles in Harvard Business Review presents enough of evidence of this. And I've always been arguing for the last several years, if you are in HR, you are lucky, because you get to know everything about the organization. The best way to know an organization is to know the people. So good CHROs are likely to make good CEOs. And a CEO cannot be good unless he or she also happens to be a good CHRO. I mean, you don't need to be designated as a CHRO. A good CEO necessarily has got to be a people manager. If you are not a good people manager, as a CEO, you will have tremendous limitations of success. Your success will be limited either time-wise or in some sector-wise. Yeah, I agree with that, right?
All right.
Does it make sense?
Yes, indeed. And then you talked about the three roles, that is industrial relations, that maybe compliance, I would relate to that, and then personal management and development. What is your suggestion when it comes to finding a balance between these three?
Different organizations at different points of time require differentiated thrust. Organizations that have come to be stabilized and then that have very ambitious growth and so on need to move towards HRD style. Organizations who are still struggling with their own practices, systems are not well set and so on, I think the focus will have got to be on personnel. Some of the organizations who have succeeded, who have done a marvelous job, but for some environmental reasons, the employees have got unionized and then they start creating issues. Fortunately, in most of the countries today, this is not a major issue, but you do hear now and then, last 3 to 4 years, in India and some of the sectors, particularly in the manufacturing sector, we have heard some noises where I think the unions have started excess of authority and so on. So in those kind of situations, I think you don't have much of an alternative except to become a development-oriented and empowering, and maybe if necessary, a highly disciplining IR manager or HR manager and so on. So it's very difficult to give any one formula. The formula is always move towards human resource development because growth is there. But when it is required, you have to move back to, it is like Maslow's hierarchy, you know. You aim at self-actualization, but somewhere your basic needs are not taken care of. You can't just say, I'm highly self-actualized, I don't care about the basic needs. You have to come back and make sure that these are met and then go back. So I always say that IR is a basic kind of a thing. Personal management is, I think, the next level, and then self-actualization level is the HRD. So you have to keep moving from one to the other. And that is true with HR managers and that's true with CEOs.
All right. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, while you were telling that, my mind is all about, you said in the beginning there are three types of leaders in the Asian culture, that is charismatic, critical, and benevolent. And we have seen that throughout, from the 90s onwards, people have been trying very best when it comes to deriving the leadership roles and leadership styles and motivational factors. And yet, why can't our leaders at the front row can't understand what makes their people happy in the workplace? Or why can't they lead their people in a better fashion than just, an arrogant leader that we have seen in the theory X factor, right?
Well, Nisha, very unfortunately, no leader thinks that he or she is not doing a great job. Every leader, most of the time when we ask the leaders, what is your leadership style? They always say that I'm highly developmental. Very rarely you come across, maybe 1 in 20 people, that is about, at best about 5 to 10% maximum, 5%, even less than that, say that, look, I am a critical leader, but my company needs it. But 95% of the people say that they are highly participative, they are very developmental and so on. That is what they feel. But you talk to their juniors, you find at least a third of the juniors report contrary kind of things. So I think most leaders are conceptually and intellectually, talk-wise, they are pretty good. I mean, they profess developmental style, empowering style, but unknowingly, or sometimes maybe knowingly, I would assume more unknowingly, they practice a critical kind of a style. That's where the CHRO's role is. Quite often, I compare the role of a CHRO with, for at least for the Indian audience, Indian friends, I can say, there is a character called Vidur. Vidur is supposed to be the minister in with the Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is the king who cannot see the world. He blinded, so he can't see. So when he can't see, Vidur, his minister, keeps on explaining to Dhritarashtra. And there are many things which I think people are doing, which Vidur tells Dhritarashtra, this is not the right thing, and you take right decisions. Dhritarashtra doesn't like it, but Vidur doesn't mince words. He says, no, king, I think I advise you, but it is your final decision. So a CHRO should fearlessly point out to the CEO what is right, what is wrong. And this is not according to his or her opinion. They should conduct periodically surveys, employee engagement surveys, happiness surveys, and present these surveys as reflections of the styles of the CEO or top management and create conversations around this. Now, most CHROs are shy of doing this. They don't want to because they are afraid of losing maybe their position because they assume that telling negative things to the CEO would mean the CEO could show the way out. They are afraid, and that is where the problem comes. So I think you need to be a very secure CHRO. You should recognize and be able when things are not going on well. That is where you take help of research. For example, I mean, it's a very simple thing. Well, in most cases, performance management systems run into trouble. Why do they run into trouble? Because line managers don't have time to identify KRAs and conduct performance conversations, performance review discussions. Now, who will bell the cat? Who is responsible? Most often, it starts from the top. The CEO doesn't spend time with his own next level people, and so it percolates down. Now, CHROs keep on trying their best to make people at the bottom conduct these when the top management itself is not giving time for identifying KRAs or conducting performance conversations. So that is where, so therefore the problem is CHRO is not doing enough to convince the CEO and get the CEO to do his or her job in terms of any of the HR systems. So that is the kind of a role a CHRO should perform. That's why I say CHRO is more than, should be more influential than the CEO because he influences the CEO. So if you are able to do that, you can be an excellent CEO whenever an opportunity. That's what I believe. I don't know if it is making sense.
It does indeed. Well, at this point, we are running out of time. So thank you so much for being here with us and being able to kick our show with your presence is such an honored situation. So to wrap up, you know, you talked about CHROs and CEOs and their issues in between. But then how do we make it a little more fair by having a better partnership between CEOs and CHROs? What is that one single tip that you wanted to give it to our audience and you wanted to leave to our audience and then wrap up the show?
Well, I would strongly recommend the CHROs to undertake a development-oriented 360-degree feedback program. 360-degree feedback, the way we have conceptualized, helps us start a conversation around leadership. Make leadership development as the single point agenda and use the existing HR systems like performance management or 360 and other things to facilitate leadership development. I think it is the job of the CHRO to make the CEO constantly reflect. And I think also develop the habit in those cases where CEOs don't read much. We have wonderful literature coming up, excellent internet facilities, and talks like this. I think if sometimes the CH get to listen to some of these kind of talks and then reflect about it, I think that will do some good job. That's the kind of message I can give.
Oh, thank you so much.
HR life should now focus on CEOs.
Absolutely, we're gonna do a show specifically for a CEO meet, and we look forward to having a fantastic panel in that session, and we would request your help to be when it comes to inviting the right persons to that show. All right. Well, thank you so.
Questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Any questions coming up from you or from any of your participants?
Well, at this point, I've not received any questions at this point, but then people are so excited and they are sharing your wisdom on our Twitter stream and sharing their perspectives on Twitter stream. And we are so happy to see that, even though we had a little bit of technical glitches in the beginning. And thank you so much for everyone for putting up with our technological issues. And I'm sure they all were eagerly waiting to hear from you. So that's what I can read or I can understand from all those interesting tweets on our Twitter stream.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much and have a wonderful night at India. And I know it's Shivaratri in India. And thank you so much for being here on a busy day on your schedule. And we really, really appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right.
So we close the show now?
Yeah, we are about to wrap up the show at this point, and thank you so much to all of our audience for being patient and for being there for us even during the technical glitches. I know you all have been waiting to hear from the legend that is Dr. V Rao, and hope you have all had a fantastic time listening and watching him speak and learning from him. And we look forward to having one more show with him sometime again soon with a better internet connectivity probably next time, and hope for the best. And thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we will meet you next month.